Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining the Melanoma Research Alliance today. I'm Stephanie Kauffman. I'm the Melanoma Research Alliance's President and Chief Operating Officer, and it's always a pleasure to be connecting with our incredible melanoma community. And today, we're really excited to share with you some of the latest updates within melanoma research. And as a special update, today is a very specific and special webinar to talk about our Step Up for Melanoma Community Fundraising Challenge. Step Up for Melanoma is our virtual fitness challenge to raise funds for melanoma research and bring awareness to the disease. And also, it enables all of us to honor everyone who's been impacted by a melanoma diagnosis. We are challenging participants to walk 10,000 steps a day, every day in the month of May. And all of this is to really benefit the melanoma community and melanoma research. Last year, thanks to our incredible Step Up community, we raised over $100,000, which enabled 2,000 hours in the lab, providing additional support, resources, and quite frankly, critical funding to our scientists that we are proud to fund all over the world who are working every single day to uncover new answers and deliver new discoveries that will benefit melanoma patients everywhere. We look forward to our discussion today, taking any type of questions. Please feel free to post questions in the chat box located at the bottom of your screen, and we'll try to get to as many of those as we can. Just as a friendly reminder that the Melanoma Research Alliance team cannot answer any personal medical information. So for today's conversation, I'm really pleased to introduce our special guest today. Starting off, our most special guest, melanoma patient, advocate, thriver, Trena Brown. Trena is a thought leader and a convener in raising melanoma awareness, and especially in the Black community. Trena was last year's Step Up for Melanoma fundraiser, and she'll be sharing later on in this webinar her really powerful story, as well as insights that she has to make your Step Up for Melanoma experience as meaningful as possible. Trena, always a pleasure to see you. Thank you so much and welcome.
I'm so happy to be here and to be able to participate.
Yeah, we are always honored to be in your orbit and your presence. So thank you so much. Also joining us today, we have Dr. Marc Hurlbert. Dr. Marc Hurlbert is the MRA Chief Executive Officer, and it's always good to see you, Marc. And we're going to talk a little bit about the exciting plans that we have ahead over the next couple of years for MRA. So Marc, good to see you.
Thank you, Stephanie. Great to be here today, and good to see you, Trena, as well.
And then finally, rounding out this incredible panel discussion today, always a pleasure to see Dr. Joan Levy. Dr. Joan Levy is MRA's Chief Science Officer, and Dr. Levy is going to be sharing some insights on our exciting grants program that we're going to be announcing a little bit later on next week. So Dr. Levy, good to see you.
Great to be here. Great to see you, Trena.
So great. All righty. Well, Marc, I'd like to start with you. And May 1st actually marks the first anniversary of you being appointed MRA's Chief Executive Officer, having served previously for a number of years as MRA's Chief Science Officer. And would really love to have you reflect upon what this last year has been leading MRA, and then what are you excited about for the future of melanoma research and all the work that MRA is doing to advance those discoveries for patients everywhere.
Yeah, no, happy to be here on my almost 1-year anniversary of becoming the CEO of the Melanoma Research Alliance. First, for the people listening in that don't know me, I consider myself to have the best job in the world. I get to work very closely every day with patients, family members, advocates for melanoma, as well as the best scientists and physicians all across the United States and all over the world. So it's really remarkable. I love the work I get to do every day in partnership with Stephanie, Joan, and the amazing MRA team, and all of our supporters and donors and patients that we serve. You know, when MRA was founded in 2007, melanoma research was quite stagnant. There wasn't a lot of work being done. There weren't a lot of treatment options. However, if you fast forward today, we've had now more than 15 new FDA-approved treatments just in the last 11 years, which is remarkable progress. No other field of cancer or oncology has made the same progress as melanoma has. MRA has invested now $150 million to advance melanoma research, and we support more than 400 research projects at universities all across the US and in 19 countries around the globe. So really remarkable progress. But one of the things, as I stepped up to become CEO, is I realized even though we've made a lot of amazing progress, there's still a lot more work to be done. There'll be 100,000 new cases of melanoma diagnosed in the US this year. Sadly, about 8,000 people will die from the disease. So although we've made great progress, we still have a long way to go to eliminating this disease. And so we've been working hard over my first year as CEO to really identify what are the main areas that we need to advance research on. And the first is understanding the patients that don't respond to these 15 new amazing treatments, immunotherapies, targeted therapies. Why do some patients respond and others don't? And how can we improve responses and outcomes? We still also have a long way to go in early detection of melanoma. Still too many people see their primary care doctor, they'll see a dermatologist, and an abnormal mole or a melanoma could be missed. And so how could we bring to bear computer science, artificial intelligence, and machine learning to develop new tools to help dermatologists, to help primary care doctors to detect and diagnose melanoma? And then one of the last other big areas is we need to do more when it comes to diversity in helping all populations facing a melanoma diagnosis. Anyone can get melanoma, regardless of your race or ethnicity, but specifically people with darker skin of color, Black populations, Latinx populations, and Asian populations more often get melanomas that are not necessarily due to sun exposure. So they get these rare subtypes of melanoma called acromelanoma, one called uveal melanoma, and one called mucosal. And acral is this subtype that occurs on your hands, on the palm of your hand or the sole of your feet. Mucosal is one that occurs on melanoma melanocytes on the internal mucous membrane. So in your nasal cavity, oral cavity, you could think of the moist tissues of your body. And then lastly, uveal melanoma is a rare subtype that occurs in the eye, or ocular melanoma is also called sometimes. So we need to do more on understanding treatment resistance, improving detection and diagnosis, and making sure we have treatments for all populations. And then lastly, one of the biggest challenges in the melanoma community is funding. There's really not enough funding going to melanoma research. It's still underfunded compared to other cancer types and other diseases. And we need to raise more funds and deploy more funds to solve some of these critical questions in melanoma research. But it's an exciting time. We've made a lot of progress over the last decade, but more work to do.
That's great, Marc. Well, we are number one, so on behalf of the MRA team, we're so appreciative for your leadership and really taking MRA to the next levels. We have a really bold and ambitious goal over the next 5 years to raise and invest over $100 million in melanoma research. And it's activities and opportunities like Step Up for Melanoma that really will give us ways for everyone to play a role in funding that critical research that we believe is necessary to continue to find new treatments, to find more effective treatments, to deal with, resistance to the treatments that we have today. And ultimately, our goal is we want to go right where science leads us. We want to do it in a collaborative environment, but always we keep in the center of everything that we do. Our nucleus is for the patient communities that we serve. And with that in mind, I want to transition over to Dr. Joan Levy. And we are really excited to give some of the folks that are joining us here today a sneak preview about our 2023-2024 grant cycle announcement, which won't hit the news wires until later on next week. So everybody tuning in, you are actually getting special sneak preview information. So Joan, as MRA's Chief Science Officer, I'd love it if you could share what are you really excited about and what are some of the really incredible projects that we are so proud to fund this year that were made possible by folks who are on this webinar with us. Over to you, Joan.
Yeah, thank you, Stephanie. It's great to be here. And am thrilled to be able to share news about our research funding and another one of our very exciting projects that I'll explain in a few minutes. But first and foremost, I really want to thank our dedicated donors, partners, supporters, volunteers, those on the call today, who each year ensure melanoma research is able to continue and bring about life-saving breakthroughs. So to start off, and on behalf of the MRA, I am thrilled to announce a $6.3 million commitment to melanoma research for this year's grant cycle. Our unique multidisciplinary funding portfolio supports a wide range of cutting-edge research across all stages of the disease, as you'll hear about. And our innovative and efficient grant-making model is designed to foster collaboration among our investigators, advancing research further and faster, which is critically important. MRA-funded research spans the entire disease spectrum. It includes melanoma prevention, diagnosis, and treatment of primary, advanced, and metastatic disease. So how do we select proposals for these outstanding research grantees? Well, we are guided by MRA's renowned grant review committee, really experts in the field of melanoma. So all of our grants are our proposals are peer reviewed by this grant review committee. And this results in the selection of the finest proposals to support the best science and technology. Many of the awardees are working with colleagues across institutions, across disciplines, across the ocean, all over the globe. We fund, as Marc mentioned, we fund research international in the US and internationally. So for this particular grant cycle, we are proud to fund 8 established investigators. What are established investigators? Well, these are our academic researchers who are past 5 years of their academic appointment. So they're more of the senior investigators. We also are supporting 11 young investigators. Young investigators are academic researchers that are within their first 5 years of appointments. They will hopefully become our rising stars and really help lead the melanoma community in the future. And we are finally funding 5 what we call pilot awards. Pilot awards are very special types of awards that an investigator comes up with an idea. They might get some preliminary data, but they really want to expand this idea and do some preliminary research in it. And we're supporting 5 of these awards. Hopefully these 5 pilot awards and all of our others will help build the research around their idea so that these investigators in a few years can apply for other types of MRA awards or awards through the National Cancer Institute or even other foundations. So I think Marc mentioned a few of our focus areas, but just to go over them, you know, we do fund the spectrum of the disease, but our research cycle will have some specific focus on early melanoma and progression of disease. As Marc mentioned, rare melanoma subtypes, and he described what acral, mucosal, and uveal melanoma is and where they occur. And what's also very interesting and unfortunate about some these rare subtypes is even though we've made great progress with 15 different approvals, many of the standard of cares that work in the more common type of melanoma, cutaneous melanoma, do not work as well in these rare subtypes. So we really need to have a focus on rare subtypes in our grant funding. We also want to understand the development of resistance because, as you've heard, not all patients respond to the incredible therapies that have been identified. So we really need to understand why certain patients don't respond, why certain patients first respond and then their disease progresses. And we also want to improve the effectiveness of immunotherapy, which does work well in subsets of melanoma patients, but we want to make sure that it can work well in all melanoma patients. And we're looking into different types of immunotherapies and bringing them forward. And finally, we have a particular focus in metastatic disease. When cancer metastasizes, that means it leaves its primary site and melanoma goes to other tissues in the body. In particular, we're going to have a big focus this year on the spread of melanoma to the brain. Melanoma is a solid tumor where brain metastases occur very commonly, and we really want to see if we can prevent these metastases as well as treat them more effectively once they occur. So very thrilled about our research portfolio. We've added a lot of great grants this year, and we're really expanding the portfolio, and it really will lead to some breakthrough discoveries. So what else? There's one other initiative that I'd like to talk to you about in addition to our grant funding. And that's an initiative that the MRA and our patient advisors, of which Trena is one of them, are really excited about to share with you. And it's the official launch of the RARE registry. This registry is the first of its kind patient registry for acral and mucosal melanomas. We didn't include uveal because there are already 3 other registries for uveal melanoma, but for acral and mucosal, there aren't any patient registries at this moment. So what is a registry and what is this registry? This is a direct-to-patient registry, which will compile patients' medical information and their journeys with their disease through a series of surveys. And the de-identified data, which means data that's stripped of all personal identifiers, will be shared with researchers worldwide, providing them with information to help guide them identify new treatments and better care for patients with these rare subtypes. And the emerging data will also be shared in real time with the participants of the RARE registry, the patients, the caregivers, as we want the participants to really feel actively engaged in the registry. And also, I'd just like to point out, which is not quite obvious from what I just said, is that not only acral and mucosal melanoma patients will be included, but we will also include a cohort of cutaneous melanoma patients can also enroll, or melanoma patients with the more common type of melanoma. The idea of this registry started with a group of acral and mucosal melanoma patients who really wanted to further research for their rare subtypes. And what they thought was that going direct to the patient to learn about their journeys, learn about treatment histories, how they're monitored, their treatments, their diagnosis, was really important to build. And so they approached the MRA a few years ago about starting this direct-to-patient registry. And we're thrilled now that we are the sponsors of this registry. We formed a patient advisory committee and then a medical advisory committee, the latter composed of clinicians, including from all different disciplines, including surgeons, dermatologists, medical oncologists, epidemiologists. So in essence, patients, caregivers, researchers, and clinicians all have and will continue to work together to advance research forward. It's a great feeling of total community. We already started to, and in moving forward, the MRA will issue a wide range of communications to really ramp up the visibility of the RARE registry to the patient community and to increase enrollment. And as I mentioned before, it is an ideal opportunity for patients to actively participate in research, a great feeling for all participants, great gratitude from the research and clinical communities for participants to do so. It's with bold ideas like the RARE registry and the investment in melanoma research that's urgently needed to really propel the next set of breakthroughs for the melanoma community. So again, I am thrilled to have shared these 2 initiatives and have provided a sneak preview of our grant investments to those on the call. And enjoy the rest of the program.
Great. Thank you so much, Joan. Always love hearing about the science, and really what I think gratifies all of us here at MRA is ensuring that the patient voice is really a part and integrated into the types of research grant process, but also helping us really think through the next evolution. And I think the RARE registry is such a perfect example of making sure that the patient voice and input is, living side by side with our scientists who I know value that deeply. And so we're really excited to make that happen the first time for acral and mucosal melanoma patients, and really find those necessary answers. So thank you so much for that. And just as a reminder, if anybody has some questions, we do have a Q&A box. Just feel free to pop that in there and we'll get to those as soon as we possibly can. And as always, to get more information on our rare registry and the types of things that we're doing at the Melanoma Research Alliance, you're always welcome to go onto our website, which is curemelanoma.org, which is on our background here. Now, to our very, very special guest, we're so excited. Trena, first things first, thank you for all that you do for melanoma research, not only in giving your voice, serving as a patient advisor to us here at MRA. You've been a patient advisor for the Congressionally Directed Medical Research Program. And also you're going to spend some time giving some terrific ideas to our Step Up community. And we just want to let you know, we appreciate you every single day. And
it's my pleasure.
You're so great. So before we jump into Step Up for Melanoma, it would be wonderful if you would share your melanoma story with all of us here today.
Sure. My story began in the late 80s, early 90s, when I noticed that I had what I thought was fungus on my big toenail. So I went to a dermatologist at that time, and he told me, believe it or not, that, oh, don't worry about it. As you get older, it'll probably get darker. It may even turn black. Don't worry about it. So I didn't. And sure enough, as I got older, the streaks grew together. My toe turned black, but I wasn't worried about it because I'd seen this dermatologist. Well, between that time, the 90s and the early 200s, I started going I had moved and I was going to different dermatologists, and they started doing biopsies on my toe. They all came back negative until 2013, when they came back positive. I got a call from my doctor saying, we've scheduled you for toe amputation on Thursday. This was on a Tuesday. On Thursday, my toe was amputated and my world changed. It just changed. So I was back in the gym trying to regain some balance because I was favoring one side instead of, both sides. And my trainer, who I had been working with for about a year, noticed that I was out of breath. So I thought she was just being picky because at the time I was 68 and I said, we just ran up 2 flights of steps. What do you mean I'm out of breath? I'm supposed to be out of breath. And she said, no, you're more out of breath than usual. And that woman saved my life because when I finally got to my yearly exam 2 months later with my doctor, he had gone through all my blood tests and blow in the tube tests and just every test you can think of, and pronounced me perfectly healthy. But when I mentioned that my trainer had said I was out of breath, he said, oh, stop down and get a x-ray. And then he called at 7:30 the next morning, and anybody calls me at 7:30, I know it's a problem. So he said, I need you to go get a CT. And then the following day, he called again and said, I'm going to schedule you for a lung biopsy. And I never asked him what it was about. I mean, in the furthest crevices of my mind, to me, it could not be anything but bronchitis or something. But lo and behold, the melanoma had metastasized to my lungs. So I began a treatment in 2016 for 2 years, every other week, of immunotherapy. And thankfully, I responded extremely well to it. And so that was in 2018. Since then, I've been getting maybe we'll start at 3 months and then 4 months and then 6 months follow up. But so far, everything is clear. And I'm just happy and grateful to be here and to participate in any way that I can to educate the community on acral melanoma in particular, because it goes undiagnosed, misdiagnosed, or late diagnosed for too many people. And I really want to step up the education on that as well as the research.
You know, Trina, you talked about something really important here, and we've had this conversation, and you've shared actually in a lot of interviews about just how little awareness there is out there around acral melanoma in general, but even more so for people of color. Many people don't realize that acral melanoma is actually the most common form of melanoma being diagnosed with people with darker skin. And we're so thankful that you are here, and we're thankful to your trainer for saying, like, there's something not right and advocating for yourself. But unfortunately, in those instances, because there is such little awareness around acral melanoma, and particularly within communities of color, by the time it is diagnosed, it's more in an advanced state, and the outcomes are not as, bright as we would want them to be. I'd love to have you just share with everyone how you've used your platform to really help advocate and educate, particularly communities of color around this, because there's just not a lot of information around this in general, as much work as we're all doing. But love to kind of get your perspective on that and what we should be thinking about.
Well, my friends are probably sick of me talking about it. I talk about it all the time, wherever I am. If there's any situation that looks like it might be trouble, I might spot something like a fingernail that has streaks in it, and I'm saying, have you checked that out? And then, we'll get into conversation on things. But I am always taking the opportunity to speak to groups like church groups or small groups about acral melanoma, because as I was, people are ignorant about acral melanoma. I mean, when I was told I had melanoma, I said, you got to be kidding me. That's for white people. And I did not know that there was a difference between my rare melanoma and acral melanoma. I was probably a year into treatment. I was so blown away that I was, sitting in a hospital getting treatment for something that I just knew couldn't possibly affect us, because that had been, I guess, what they call an old wives' tale, that we just, because of the color of our skin, were not susceptible, to melanoma. So I take every opportunity I can to talk about it. And it's amazing, even in I'll say there are a couple of nurses that I know that I got into arguments about acral melanoma, because they were saying, no, that's not possible. It's from the sun. I'm like, look it up. You've got to look it up. There's just a lot of ignorance, about rare melanomas, and the fact that we don't know what it comes from and how important the research is to understand, or try to, at least begin to understand why it originates, and why it's in people of color skin.
I think, Trina, you raised such an important point, and 2 points I was just going to raise for our audience to be aware of. And maybe if the organizers in the background could pull up the RARE website, I'd love for the participants to see that while I talk to you about it. But I think this Rare Melanoma Registry, thankfully, Trina, you've been so helpful with the other dozen patient advisors to help us create this. But everyone can go to raremelanoma.org and learn more about this if you have acral, mucosal, or cutaneous melanoma, and register. But I think, Trina, your point of we just don't have a lot of information about acral melanoma, it's so critical. And so I hope any of the viewers today that are touched by acral mucosal would go to this website, raremelanoma.org, and learn more about the registry. I think it's really critical. The largest studies to date have only looked at 30 or 40 patients with acral melanoma. And so through this long-term registry that Emory is starting in partnership with patients like Trina, we're hoping over the next decade to look at hundreds or thousands of patients so we can really learn more about the disease. And again, you can look at the websites being shown now and look at it on your own time at raremelanoma.org. Thanks to the organizers behind the scene. And Trina, one other thing I wanted to clarify, and I don't know if you've heard of this when your friends and family were asking you about your recurrence in your lung. So many times I've counseled patients, they think that they had, melanoma, on somewhere else on their body. and then they think mistakenly that now they have lung cancer. And I always like to clarify for people, no, it's called metastasis. And the cancer cells that in your case were once on your toe, somehow made it through the bloodstream, through the lymph nodes, and wound up in your lungs. But have you ever had people get confused that what was in your lung and and how does that relate to your melanoma?
Absolutely. And hey, I'm one who was confused, at first. I'm like, what do you mean I have melanoma in my lungs? How is that possible? And they were telling me about the markers and how they know this. I said, well, there's nothing that showed up in my sentinel node test. My lymph nodes were clear. Like, how did this happen? But it only takes one crazy cell to go dancing and start a party in your lungs. So, but now I'm an educated person, but I just am not medically educated. So, I try to do my best now to explain to people, how this possibly works. And no, it's not lung cancer, it's metastases. So
yeah, thank you.
Right.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, it's a misconception. A lot of people don't realize, but it's actually the melanoma skin cells went to your lungs, or in other people, in other cases, can go to your liver, brain, or other organs. But thanks for sharing your story on that. It's such an important educational moment for all people.
Yeah, no, definitely. Thank you so much around that. So, Trena, love to kind of talk about Step Up for Melanoma, because this is how things like the rare registry is able to happen. Last year, you were a leading fundraiser for Step Up for Melanoma. Would love if you could share with the audience some of the tips and helpful hints on how anyone participating in this really wonderful campaign can make it meaningful for them. And maybe we can start off with a question that I know we always get asked, and I think you do as well, is not everybody feels comfortable in asking friends and family, for a donation. Although I tend to find when the cause is personal, actually people sometimes are upset that you didn't ask. So why not? We'd love for you to just kind of have you share your Step Up for Melanoma campaign efforts last year, what you felt was really successful, what great hints you would have for our community, and any other key learnings that you had.
Sure. I am absolutely the worst in asking people for money. The worst. So I knew I was going to have to resort to the written pen to get any attention, or even to stimulate myself to get this going. But I was really afraid of it at first. I never asked people for money, but I had been chattering about it, I guess, with friends. Say, I signed up for this thing. I've got to not only walk 10,000 steps a day, but I've got to get some money for research. This is important. And I was surprised that, immediately they offered to support me. So what I did was to spend some time with my write-up about my story. And I wanted to hit a couple of things immediately, kind of like the USA Today approach, to everything in the first couple of sentences, to say, that it's acral melanoma. It doesn't necessarily come from the sun. We don't know where it comes from, and that it mostly affects brown and Black people. The majority of our instances are acral. And the third thing was Bob Marley, because people my age could relate to Bob Marley, and they knew he had died, but a lot of people did not know that he had practically the same thing I had, melanoma that, metastasized, and he died. And the emphasis for research for, acral melanoma. So, wrote those sentences out, and, some other information for my page and my fundraising page. And then when I published my fundraising page, I actually published it a week before May, and I got responses, and it blew me away. I was like, oh my God, people are reading this, they're paying attention to this. So then I said, well, how can I get some more people to pay attention? And what I did was I used my contacts in email, and I sent targeted letters with my link to people in email. And again, people answered. People started, sending in money, and I'm watching it go up and up, and I keep raising my goal because I don't want people to think I met my goal. That was one thing. My goal started lower, and every time I reached my goal, I raised it on my fundraising page because, people would look at it and say, oh, she got the money that she wanted. No, I want as much as I can get. So I also realized that, I'm in my 70s, so a lot of people my age don't regularly use email. I printed out a letter, the same kind of letter that I had in email, and snail mailed it to them. Some people called and said, oh, can I just send you a check and you take care of it? And I said, sure. So they would send me the check, and then I'd go online and enter the information in the system for them. So I got more people that way. And I also had forgotten that I had a link on a page on LinkedIn. So I posted it on LinkedIn, and again, blew me away because I retired in 2003. The last year was like 19 years ago. And people came out of the woodworks, saying, oh, I remember you, thank you for being in touch with me and letting us know about this. And people started sending money, and a couple of people called, and I got more addresses, from them, and it just spread that way. So now I'm feeling a lot more confident. So in my gym class, my Zumba class, I asked if I could make an announcement and I, explained Step Up for Melanoma and acral melanoma, and just, a really quick blurb on, how they could contribute to the research. And I got contributions, from them. And I think that was, the last thing I did was, okay, so now I'm feeling pretty good about my donations, right? So I said, there's some people who haven't given yet. So I started texting them, like, hey, did you overlook? You must have overlooked this. This is me. Like, I haven't asked you for anything in the past, but I'm asking you now. And they responded, and I got money that way. So, I was truly humbled by the donations and how easy it was, really. In fact, it was much easier than walking. But that was good for me. That was good for me too. We talk about scanxiety. I had step-xiety, but I made it. And some days I made it and some days I didn't, and it doesn't matter. As long as you're trying and people know you're trying, it really doesn't matter if you walk 100 versus 10,000 a day.
No, absolutely. And I love how you talked about different ways of getting your story out there and really trying to meet people at where they were at. And I think what so many people realize, like you did, is if you make the ask and really kind of in that really personal storytelling way, people want to help. And I think that's one of the amazing things that we see every single day here at MRA, the amount of friends and supporters who want to come out and say, I really want to help this person and I want to help donate in honor of and tribute to. At the end of the day, I think fundamentally people really do want to help their friends and their loved ones. And so I loved your idea about LinkedIn. I think a lot of people overlook that as a really incredible resource that, some of the folks that you may be engaging if you are in the corporate space, but maybe, you keep that on the corporate side of your life versus, maybe some of those more personal relationships. I love that tip. And in fact, you gave me that idea. So I'll be sure to use that on my LinkedIn page. As we're
well, and another thing too is that Facebook, I don't know what the LinkedIn does because I just haven't paid attention to it, but I know Facebook has a page for retired AT&T people. Oh, wow. So people who belong to corporations or groups, if they have a page for their specific group or corporation, may ask if you can post it on there as well. I did, but I just, I thought of that after it was all over.
No, that's really great. And we would also say to anyone, if their corporation makes a lot of corporations and companies do matching gifts. We try to make that really easy at MRA. We have a little button you can click to see if your company does match gifts. And so that's actually additional funding support that you can look into in terms of your Step Up for Melanoma campaign. So these are all really amazing tips and tricks. And to your point, everybody does everything that they can. If you get 10,000 steps in one day and the weather's not cooperating, or your body is saying, I need a rest, what do we know? We need to listen to our bodies and advocate for ourselves. And I think your story really, continues to underscore that. So we get our steps in wherever we can and however we can.
With our hats.
With our hats. And we're going to talk about that, actually. That's a perfect segue. So we're going to spend the last couple of minutes of our time together today to give some exciting news and some information and some tips like wearing hats. I love a good hat. But Trena, thank you as always. Like I said, it is an honor and a joy to always be in your presence, and thank you for your time. And we're going to move over to some helpful hints. So why don't we talk first about our Step Up for Melanoma campaign. And a really exciting announcement today is that thanks to the generosity of a donor who wishes to remain anonymous, all Step Up for Melanoma donations this year will be matched dollar for dollar up to $300,000 as part of our May Melanoma Awareness activities. So if you happen to raise, let's say $500, it's going to be matched another $500. And so your impact this year could be $1,000 for research. And we're really excited that there will be a match giving campaign around that. So really exciting news. Hopefully everybody will be really galvanized around the fact that anything that you raise through Step Up for Melanoma is going to be matched dollar for dollar. Also, as a wonderful reminder, and we're really proud to be the melanoma organization who can say this, is thanks to the generosity of our founders, Deborah Black, who is an acral melanoma thriver herself, and her husband, Leon. 100% of all funds raised go directly to research. They generously cover every single year all the administrative and operational costs of MRA. So not only is your gift going to be matched, 100% of whatever is raised goes directly into research, which means your steps go even further than the 310,000 miles or steps that we're all looking to accomplish. 310,000 miles would be an awful lot, but 310,000 steps will definitely make a difference. And then also this year, what we are doing is we are offering incentives for all of our fundraisers. So for any individual who raises $500, and that would be before any match funds, you have to raise the $500 through your channels first before any match funds would not apply on this front. However, you will receive a sun safety kit, which includes an MRA branded water bottle, sunscreen from our incredible partners at L'Oreal Dermatological Beauty. Thank you to L'Oreal for their incredible sunscreen, particularly all the brands that they have. You'll get this really wonderful MRA bracelet that is really kind of sun sensitive. And we're also really grateful to our partners over at Spot My UV with their incredible product that actually tells you when you need to get some better UV protection and sunscreen and to reapply. So everyone will be receiving this for every $500 when they raise their first $500 for us. Then for anyone who raises $1,000 or more, you're going to receive a limited edition UPV protected MRA branded bucket bag in addition to your sun safety kit. We're also thrilled to have a brand new partner this year supporting melanoma research, and that's Bimini Bay Outfitters. They are some of the pioneers in terms of UPV protective clothing. So there will be, we're going to be adding them in terms of a $100 gift card for our grand prize winners. And then I think the last thing we want to share, if we have it on the slide, is for those whoever raises the most amount of money for Step Up for Melanoma, we're going to be providing them with a travel scholarship to attend the 2024 Melanoma Research Alliance Scientific Retreat and Patient Forum in Washington, D.C., February 21st through the 23rd of 2024. Get that $100 gift card also to Bimini Bay, plus all the other items that we discussed. we're really excited to want to recognize the individual who raises the most amount of money and bring them to Washington, D.C. and be in the middle where we bring what is MRA to life through our world-renowned scientific convening of all of our researchers, as well as at least 100 different patients that are coming in to really share in that research and science experience. So exciting things ahead. We will be continually providing that information on the Step Up for Melanoma landing page that's on our website, as well as our Facebook groups and other exchange groups. Now, if we move on next, there is a 2023 participant toolkit, and you will, it's an online toolkit that will take you step by step on registering as an individual, team, or team captain if you have not already done that. The toolkit will also provide you with ideas on how to track your steps, how the fundraising leaderboard works, how to connect your Step Up page to Facebook, and also some suggested sun safety messages that you can post to your social media, and so much more. So again, that participant toolkit is online. If you go to curemelanoma.org, Step Up FAQ, you can access it there. On to the next thing in terms of speaking of sun safety. Yes, we are well aware that the Step Up for Melanoma can be an outdoor challenge, and we want to ensure that everyone practices sun safe protection. So as a reminder, when you're getting your steps in, please be sure to avoid peak rays of the day. Seek shade during that midday sun. I know we have a team at MRA. We are all stepping up for melanoma. We have a MRA team that's going to be doing our steps. We also have a rare melanoma team that we've put together. And I know that many of us are going to try to get our steps in the morning, if at all possible, early morning. Definitely wear sunscreen. Use that broad spectrum sunscreen that protects against UVA and UVB with an SPF of at least 30. And don't forget to reapply every 2 hours, which is probably the amount of time it's going to take me to get my 10,000 steps in. Wear protective clothing, a hat with a wide brim, like the bucket hat we showed, or you can be even more fabulous with the example that Trena just showed us of her hat, and some protective sunglasses. Now, for those of you who are looking to track your steps, there's a couple different ways you can do it. It is on an honor system. Most smartphones and smartwatches already have a built-in tracker that you can use. There's various step tracking apps that you can download to track your steps. And we also have a printable step tracker if you want to print that out. Again, that's a part of the Step Up landing page that's on the Cure Melanoma website. And be sure to join our Facebook community where you can share your steps, share your story, give the why of why Step Up for Melanoma is something that you're really passionate about, and you can get different encouragement from fellow walkers. We find that Facebook community is really a great place to meet each other, be in community together, share tips on those steps, and just really have fellowship with everybody who is in supporting of melanoma research in the melanoma community. And then as we move on, if you have any questions, we have an incredible team here at MRA that's willing and stand at the ready to answer anything, support you in any way. The email address for that is stepup@curemelanoma.org that hopefully you can see on the screen. We also would like to thank our 2023 Step Up sponsors who have made a commitment in supporting this program with us, and we are so thankful for their generosity. We'd like to thank our partners at Merck, Iovance Biotherapeutics, Spot My UV, Bimini Bay, and L'Oreal Dermatological Beauty. We are so thankful for their support of Step Up for Melanoma. So, as we wrap up today, I want to give a special thanks to our guest, Trena Brown, for joining us today and sharing her story, the impact that she is making across the melanoma community, and all the work that she does. So, Trena, thank you again. We'd like to thank also Dr. Marc Hurlbert and Dr. Joan Levy for sharing what is happening in the melanoma research space and always giving our community of supporters the latest insights on what is happening in research and science, technology, and innovation. And to all of you out there, we want to thank each one of you, our incredible and highly valued donors and Step Up for campaigners, for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us here today. And we hope that today gave you a few ideas for your Step Up for Melanoma challenge and how the power of 10,000 steps a day will absolutely catalyze change for melanoma patients everywhere. And because of you this year, we hope to make this year with our grants program and our research and the research that we're looking to fund in the future a landmark year of discoveries where people who have been impacted by melanoma diagnosis will have more options, better outcome, and more tomorrows. So for more information on MRA or for Step Up, please head on over to curemelanoma.org. And we wish everybody a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on where you're tuning in from. And thank you again for joining us here at the Melanoma Research Alliance.